Hi, this is Jess from J. Roselle Chemic Art, back with another video today. I thought I would make this video for the people that are maybe thinking about venturing into art themselves but don't really know what supplies they might need, whether it be if you're going into traditional like drawing, sketching, that sort of thing, if you're looking more into like clay art that I have been doing more often lately, just everything that you might need as far as supplies, so that way you can venture into it with whatever you think you might need. I will go ahead and put out the disclaimer, you don't need like all of these things to really get started. Honestly, like with traditional art, you are just fine with, paper and a pencil. It's really all you need. But if you're looking into like some of the supplies that I personally use, and these are things that I have bought all by myself, I'm not sponsored in any way or anything like that, but just something to help you get started if you're wanting to venture more into different mediums, different techniques, things like that. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. Okay, so the first thing we will talk about is with traditional work. This is what I started with personally. I, had any random notebook that I took as a child, and pencil, that's really all you need if that's what you're looking to get into. Obviously this actually is my original, I'm pretty sure I used this when I was 5, 6, 7, yeah. Some very interesting drawings in here, of course. Maybe someday we will go into what all my sketchbooks contain, because I have a lot of them. Never finished one, but that is still my goal for the year of 2023. I don't know that I'll actually get to it, but there's hope. There's still hope. But I mean, really all you need is any sort of paper. Doesn't even necessarily have to be a sketchbook, notebook paper, whatever it might be. Like, obviously I use lined paper. And the pencil that I primarily have been using now is this Blackwing. I picked it up at a Blick's art store a few years ago. There was like a whole box of them, and they seem nice. I really enjoy that the eraser at the top kind of reminds me of like a paintbrush. And yeah, very easy to use. Line is dark enough, but depending on the pressure that you use, it can be very light as well. And again, eraser marks usually are pretty good with covering it up and don't say the previous line work. So I do recommend that as well. Moving on to like the sketchbook that I use currently. Honestly, this is just a regular plain sketchbook that I found at a store one day. It's not anything fancy. I've been working on lots of cute little things in here, but honestly, yeah, sketchbooks, it's okay that they're messy. This is the chance for you to get to practice your artwork. It doesn't need to be a masterpiece every time. And that's what I generally like about using this one, because there's lots of different things in here. There are mistakes. This gives me an idea of like how to plan out what I make for play things or sketchbook or artist prompts, things like that. So it never has to be super complicated. And with me, I always happen to bring this little, technically it's a makeup bag. If you haven't noticed, it's the Emperor's New Groove, the poison for Cusco. But I use it as a colored pencil bag, marker bag, whatever you prefer to call it. There's lots of stuff in here. But yeah, I keep lots of different colored pencils. I have like fine line pens if you need those. I even have these cute little artist trading cards in here. So I worked on little things with that just in case I ever want to mix and match with people. Another recommendation that I have are these Posca markers. I really enjoy, there's a lot of different variety with these. You can get like different colors. This one has sparkles in it. Lots of fun effects that you can make with those. So you'll see me do this sometimes. And actually, one of my little artist trading cards here was made with that. So yeah, fun things that you can play around with. Just try a bunch of different things. If I do want to do like, this is actually a very fun colored pencil idea. I really enjoy the colored pencils where they, if you can kind of see, have the different multicolors on it. So when you draw or sketch, you can get all the colors in there. So kind of a fun effect. This one specifically is from Milan, the multicolor. Again, you can find any other brand. That's just the one that I happen to use, and it is fun to play around with. As far as like fine line work, or just if I want to draw in pen, I do recommend the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen here. I like that the nib is pretty thin, so that way I have a hard time controlling when it's like a little bit of a thicker brush, so this just makes it easier if I want to make the thin lines and what have you, which that is primarily the style that I draw in. Not to say that it's not bad to try different styles, but that's my own personal preference. You should definitely give a try to all of it and see what works best for you. Another thing that I like to use is this Milan. Technically, it's an eraser as well as a pencil sharpener, which I think is really fun. But yeah, I like having the 2-in-1 combo, and I'm pretty sure I actually got this at the same time as I got the multicolor pencil. So I was like, yeah, you know, it was actually on sale. It was a good deal, so I thought I would get both. But yeah, definitely need an eraser if you don't already have one. Obviously, if you're working with pencils at all, you are going to need a sharpener at some point. And this is nice because you can remove it afterward to discard all of your shavings, and I think it works really well. Now, if you are looking into what is my personal favorite of colored pencil brand, I would say that it is probably this Castle Branch. You can tell I really loved it, the 120 colored version. I really enjoy having the option of having lots of different colors, so we'll go ahead and open it up here. It is fairly thick and obviously has instructions if you need it, but yeah, you can kind of see up at the top here all of the different color variations. So good purchase possibly for you if you want to have the option of using all of these colors. I try to keep very good care of this because it was on sale actually, I think, when I got it as well, but I really like that I have all those things available to me. Have I used all of the colors from sale? At least once. I think I've used all of the color pencils at least once. But I do tend to personally stick to more like darker colors sometimes, depending on what I'm drawing, more pastel for other times. So this gives me the whole option if I want to work with all those colors. So that is personally what I really enjoy. So those are the few of the things that I use personally when I do my traditional work. Obviously, if you know, whatever works best for you, if you prefer to draw with pencils, with markers, with pens. I am not as much of a painter myself, so I could not necessarily recommend them very well, but I have tried different brands like Arteza. I have used some ink paintings as well. Again, not my personal preference as far as when I make art, but I can at least recommend the ones that I have tried before. Obviously, it is up to you what you decide. Moving into digital work, though, again, this was something that I personally didn't get started with until the pandemic time. I'd never drawn digitally at all. I've never worked with like a computer software or anything like that when I was first getting started. So I like to see what I am drawing. Like, I have to physically look at my hand moving and everything when I am drawing. That is just my personal preference, how I prefer to view things. There are tablets out there that are much cheaper than this option that I'm going to show, where you have the pad and you just have to be aware of where you are drawing and looking up at your computer screen or tablet screen, whatever you use to plug into, to be able to see what it is that you're drawing. There are definitely some cheaper options like that. I, again, personally did not want to go that route, so I started with my iPad here. Again, I personally, right now, I use the 10-inch iPad, the iPad mini, essentially, and works very well for me. I really enjoy using it because it is bite-sized. Basically, I can bring it in my bag. It's not super heavy. I do have a case for it. I also use the second generation iPad pencil, and it works very well for me. Obviously, it charges on the iPad, so I do really enjoy that. This has obviously seen some wear and tear over the years, because you can tell where Prince has just liked it a little too much, but hey, it still works, so we're gonna be okay with that. But yes, primarily the iPad is what I use to do all of my digital work, whether it be simple illustrations, my more in-depth, like if I'm making October prompts or things like that, as well as all of my like sticker designs. So this is personally what I recommend. I use this to basically draw my image and then send it over to my computer and then have Cricut print out all of my stickers, things like that. So that is something that I would personally recommend. Again, I couldn't say definitively like what is the best version for you. Preferably I use the mini, and I have used the 12.9 inch of the 2020 iPad version. I really enjoyed that version, I do, but personally this is what I use more often because I like to draw on the go, whether it be, you know, sitting on the couch, outside, anything like that. Okay, so, and now we are going to be getting into the polymer clay version of this video. I really didn't start working with polymer clay until earlier this year, honestly. I happened to see a bunch of videos that were recommended to me on YouTube, and I was like, you know, that would be really fun. I like the idea of sculpting things with my hands. I had never worked with it before. I have never like sculpted anything. Oh, hi, Prince. Thank you. So the most I've ever really done as far as sculpting before this was with Play-Doh, honestly, as a child. So, you know, use my recommendations as you will. But I really enjoyed the process so far, and again, I will just give my personal recommendations on what I think is best for using with polymer clay if you're just getting started. So first thing that we'll talk about is the clay. Personally, the two brands that I mostly work with are either Sculpey or Craftsmart. Both of these things I can find at any Michael's, Hobby Lobby, etc. And depending on your price point, these things can, if you get a bunch of different colors or variations, they can be expensive, so something to be aware of. But I personally like to use this glow in the dark for all of my clay ghosts, and then whatever sort of either Craftsmart, Sculpey, whatever it might be for my color variations. If you are looking to just use regular old white clay, which is nothing wrong with that, but you still want to add colors into it, my recommendation is, this is what I keep my mica powder in, but mica powder is very easy to use. Again, I believe I bought this from Michael's actually, and if you open up, it's just a little blue powder. I actually have a bunch of different colors here, but this is a good idea for you if you don't want to spend all the money on buying, you know, a million different colors or versions of clay, but you still want to have color. This is a good way to do it. I have lots of different color options in here. All you really have to do is just mix it in with your clay, and you do have to mix it pretty finely. Be careful that you do use the surface that you're okay with it getting a little messy or that you can clean up later, because I have dropped it on the carpet before and it does leave a little bit of a stain. So definitely be careful when you're using it. But I do enjoy it, and the colors turn out really pretty depending on like how well you mix it. Like I said, you do need to mix it well so that way it does blend in with the clay. It's not going to fall off later. Sometimes if you're not like careful enough with it, it won't blend well enough. So some of it you'll have like patches of the white clay in there still. So just things to consider. One of the other things that you're going to need that you cannot technically buy at like a Michael's or a Hobby Lobby, I think there are actually versions of like mini toaster ovens that you can potentially buy now, which is actually really cool. But you are going to need an oven to be able to bake your clay. So whatever oven you have at home, if you use a toaster oven, if you use your regular oven, you are going to need that. I always use parchment paper to be able to bake all of my clay goods on. So just making sure that everything is on a flat surface. Usually I put it on a baking sheet. Hello again, Prince. So yes, when you're going to bake your clay piece, you're gonna put it on a baking sheet, put the parchment paper down, and then put your clay piece down. So I have my little cabbage card here, and that will just go directly into the oven if I'm completely satisfied with everything, because once it's baked, there's really no going back as far as like making any other changes to it, unless you intend to paint or add sparkles or whatever it might be. So the final thing that you're going to need in order to bake your clay is some satin glaze. It doesn't necessarily have to be satin, but this is just the version that I use. This is the Sculpey Satin Glaze Clay. This I have used for quite a while actually, and I still have like over half the bottle. I've been using it for several months, and I just use like any old regular paintbrush to paint all the glaze on afterwards. I do recommend just using, again, kind of a cheap paintbrush. It really doesn't matter the brand or anything like that, because what it does is it does make the bristles also pretty hard, because obviously you're using a glaze on it. So I would recommend using one that you really don't care about, because eventually it's going to have to be tossed. You know, it's not going to be usable. So again, just things to consider. And technically that is everything that you need to be able to make something out of polymer clay. In the past couple months, I have picked up a couple other things that just make it a little bit easier, so I'm not sculpting and cutting everything by hand. So again, these things are not needed, but personally what I do recommend is if you pick up a couple extra tools to make things easier. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. I really enjoy using this Gorilla Super Glue, especially if I happen to make a bigger piece and I want to bake things separately and then add them on later. This does make it easier, so if you're making a really grand sculpture but then want to add in like little flowers or whatever it might be that you need to bake separately, maybe you decided to add them later, you can add your super glue and you will just attach it right there. Makes things a lot easier. Another thing that I really like is this liquid Sculpey, if you can see it. This is really great for textures if you're maybe making like a cake and you want to make the frosting or something, or maybe if you want to making like a water for a water scene, whatever it could be. I really recommend this. It is a little bit difficult to use, I will say that, but if you have your clay and you add a little bit of this, try to mix it all together, it does make it a little bit more of a different effect than what you would normally get out of just, you know, shaping your clay. So just things to think about. Another thing I would recommend are these little tools. So again, not needed, but it does make things a little bit easier. You can get like different cutting tools to make things easier to like separate the clay. These rounding tools, again, I really like these for if I need to, like maybe I need to make a hollow effect for a cup of something, or I actually really enjoy using this smaller one. You can kind of see her there. There we go. I really enjoy using this one for when I'm making the clay ghost. So I poke a little hole, not a deep hole, but like a little indentation in the ghost, so that way I have a placement for the eyes and the mouth. Sometimes I use it for the blush, but not very often. And then, you know, if you're wanting to get like a smaller effect and add like little holes, you can use some of these tools as well. There's lots of different variations. Again, these are all things that I've picked up at my local Hobby Lobby and Michael's, so they just make things easier for me when I need to have like a certain effect, or if I want to cut something out to make it a little bit more presentable. So, and then one of the bigger things that I have more recently purchased, but it does make things a lot easier, is this little clay board from Craft Smart. Again, I picked it up at my local Michael's. It was on sale, so it works really well. Obviously, it makes things a lot easier when I need a flat surface, and as well as there are lines on the board to actually help with measuring. So if I need to have an exact guesstimate for if I'm making a plate of cookies, if I am making a clay crypt, if you've seen that, things like that, it does make it a little bit easier. Again, none of these things are necessarily needed. They just do make things easier when you need to make multiple things. If you're preparing for a craft market, putting things on a shop, things like that, or just enjoy making the craft in general, which honestly I've been having so much fun making all these cute little things. But yeah, that is basically everything that I use whenever I make my art. So whether it be when I'm going the traditional route and just sketching, if I'm using my iPad for my digital art to make new illustrations or sticker designs, or if I just want to make a cute little character or a ghostie and want to use my polymer clay. So those are my recommendations personally. Obviously, You need to try everything out yourself and find what works best for you. But I do hope you enjoyed this video and hopefully found some good insight if you want to get started into art yourself. So feel free to leave a like, a comment, maybe even subscribe if you enjoyed this kind of video, and hopefully look forward to more. Until next time though, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day.